Yeah.
He was celibate for 27 years while he was actually a monk. And then when he decided to leave monkhood to actually, and when he left it to take the throne at the age of 47, he kind of just went in the other direction and took 32 wives and produced 82 children.
If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. You're my wife.
So that's what 27 years of celibacy will do to a man. Welcome to Theoretical Nonsense, the Big Bang Theory watch-along podcast. No PhD required.
We're the podcast that recaps all the episodes of the Big Bang Theory. No spoilers.
So hop into your favorite spot,
make yourself a grasshopper,
and enjoy the ride.
Starting?
Okay. Yep. Hello there, Ryan.
Hello, Rob.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself?
I'm doing amazing because we just watched season 3, episode 8, The Adhesive Deficiency.
You did not lie. This is a great episode.
Oh my god. I'm so upset that you're leading this, but you know what? I'm very happy for you at the same time, so I won't be jealous. For any new listeners out there, I'm Rob. This is my co-host Ryan. We are Theoretical Nonsense, the podcast that recaps, reviews, and deep dives facts from the Big Bang Theory, which we call IQ points. As a reminder to everyone, I've seen this series multiple times, but this is Ryan's first time watching, so we do our best to do no spoilers. And Ryan has also been told he's very similar to Sheldon, so we keep a point tally of how close Ryan is to Sheldon. Any updates for us?
Is at 78 points, not like Sheldon, and 79 points like Sheldon. And I keep meaning to update this a little bit so we can break it down season by season a little bit. This is so far, and maybe even upload this online at some point. I've just had a hectic couple weeks, but I do plan on doing that at some point in time.
Nice.
78 to 79.
All right, we'll see if this episode tips the scales. I'm very interested if you're gonna end up like Sheldon, like how he acts in the hospital.
There's some points in this episode. I'm excited to talk about them.
All right. Well, a little housekeeping before we dive in. Don't forget to email us at theoreticalnonsensepod@gmail.com. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and follow us on Instagram and TikTok. And we actually did get a couple emails from our fan, Rick, who's emailed us several times. And I will say, sorry, Rick, this is actually a very long one. So thank you for your email. We're not going to read the whole thing, but we will address it right now. You gave us some really good constructive feedback on how we talked last time about that we actually do record ahead. He's not a big fan of us talking about cultural milestones, but you know what? Sorry, Rick, I like your feedback and we appreciate it, but if we're going to talk about stuff, we're just going to talk about stuff. We like to just kind of dive in randomly.
Yeah,
and I don't think most people
mind that.
It
takes a lot of effort to focus that much, but I was thinking that I listened to a BBC ghost podcast, and they definitely don't do any of that, but it just happens, and it's hard for me not to bring up natural stuff. So I'm not sure.
Yeah. It's something that we could be a little mindful about, but we'll see. And also, he also had a comment on the Cylon toast. You mentioned that, Rick, they just kind of made the toast for the sake of making the toast, and that we dove into it a little too much. But I disagree. I think we could have talked about that a little bit more because it's food related. I love food stuff, and we gotta know why he was making the toast.
I mean, it troubles me.
But it could have been a simple explanation of just watching him throw it away. He threw away French toast in one episode, so we could easily just see him throw away some French toast, and that could have solved the whole problem.
Yeah.
But since
nice quirk, nice detail of a show, but I wanted, I don't know, loopholes like that really dig at my mind.
Yeah. It's something that could easily be just said it happened off camera, but we at least want to know.
Where did that toast go?
Yeah, I have to know. Did he make the French toast? Did he actually decide it was French toast day? Cylon French toast. And also, you had you mentioned, and then you ended your email mentioning our kite IQ points, that we actually had some difficulties finding information. You actually put down the website that we actually did quote and cite in our episode. So the point of us saying that we couldn't find a lot of information is because even as you go through that website, it's pretty vague. And for it being so popular worldwide, you'd think that there would be a lot more information out there. We listed off a good like 7 countries that actively participate in kite fighting. Well, kite fighting and kite competitions in general. You'd think that some website would have a little bit more detailed explanation of what happens during these competitions. So,
especially if people are dying
that's all we were saying.
over them, right?
Yeah.
Because the using the glass stuff, I don't know. It seemed very dangerous. Like there'd be some regulations, but I think part of that too is in America we typically have our kite contests and stuff isn't fighting. Like we have more like people showing off their amazing kites and like big, sculptures in the sky, like dragons flying and airplanes of kites, as opposed to fighting. Although we do have it, I just don't think it's as popular, which might be part of the reason.
Yeah, that could be it too. Well, thanks again, Rick. We always appreciate it.
Yeah.
And then we actually did get another email, which I'm not going to read to its full right now because it actually relates to a different episode. So you didn't read the email, Ryan, and keep it that way.
Okay, yeah, I saw it, and there was some detail about looking, or you said you're watching ahead. I'm like, this isn't for me. And then I texted you. I'm like, Rob, got an email for you. So I don't know what it says.
Okay, good. Well, it was from Rebecca. And if anybody remembers Rebecca, shout out to you. So thank you so much. We actually cooked her great-grandmother's brisket recipe. So keeping in touch, and I will leave it at that. But Rebecca, thank you for the email. I really appreciate it. I will read it out when the time comes. So you'll know when that is. Ryan, you'll have no idea. Except it's kind of close.
Yeah.
Not that far ahead.
It's the final season.
I got really ahead. Well, one last thing before we dive in. I actually, it's been a while since I talked about my neighbor. So if anybody doesn't know, or if you're a new listener, and if you like true crime, rewind back and go to our episode 22, which was season 2, episode 4, The Griffin Equivalency. The first 45 minutes of that episode is dedicated to a true crime incident that has happened to me. So I have actually been keeping up with the trial. So I actually do have a small update. So if you want to actually listen to everything sequentially, maybe just go back so you don't get spoilers. Just skip ahead 30 seconds. Because all I'm going to say is jury selection is en route, and there is a motion out for an April trial. So it is coming up.
It's coming up.
Yeah, so more details soon. And anything else that you need to add, or?
I think that's all I have. Yeah.
Cool. Well, then without further ado, we can get started.
Okay, so we are on Season 3, Episode 8, The Adhesive Duct Deficiency. This aired November 16th, 2009, directed by Mark Sandrowski, writers Chuck Lorre, Bill Prady, and Steve Malero. And again, we said this was a good episode. It's one of my favorite already. I watched it a couple times, and I could watch it again because it's really funny. So we start off at a campsite. Howard, Raj, and Leonard are camping to see a meteor shower. And I'm going to do an IQ point on that meteor shower. I found some stuff. But apparently Sheldon is not there. He stayed away, so it's just the 3 of them. But the meteor shower that they are watching is apparently the... Oh, no, I'm going to talk about the meteor shower. But first, I forgot. I did one IQ point before that, too, right off the bat. They claim that they are at 3448 north and 11831 west. And I looked up these coordinates, and I realized that I don't really know how to look up coordinates, because when I typed this into Google Maps, I got an error, and then I did something else, and it brought up Tangqing County, Linyi, Shandong, China. And then I typed it directly into Google without the maps and got arcgis.com saying it's Los Angeles County, which makes a lot more sense. And weather.gov says it's specifically Santa Clarita, California,
Clarita.
which is, on the outskirts of Los Angeles. So that makes sense. But what I did find out was that there's, and I don't know if this is just coincidental, but apparently, this was 2003. There's a website called 34n118w.net, standing for 34 North 118 West. And apparently this was published like in 2003, I think it said. But it's a website focusing on site-specific experimental work using digital media, computation, and internet resources. And apparently when this was published, and I don't know if it's still operative completely, but back in the early 2000s, you could go like downtown Los Angeles to this place and like work with your GPS and your laptop or whatever you had to work through like a fictional narrative with hypertext. So like as you're like walking along, it would tell you the story, and like you would point your camera or computer by a certain building, and the GPS would log it and tell you part of the story about a character or something. But it seemed really interesting, but also pretty outdated. Again, I'm not sure if that was just coincidence, but when I typed in those coordinates, that was one of the first things that came up. So I thought, it's worth mentioning. I also looked into what an azimuth was. So I guess I didn't do enough math in school, but it's an angular measurement in a spherical system, basically representing how far you are looking from a specific direction, usually north. So when they say the azimuth is 168.22 degrees relative to magnetic north, basically they're looking towards a direction that is 168 degrees away from, basically they're almost looking south at that point, right? So that's the azimuth. And then they do say that the elevation is 49.93. So that's basically how far up, how many degrees they're looking up into the sky. And it kind of sounds like they're looking for meteors or a space station or something. But it turns out, and that's the end of the IQ point, basically just understanding where those coordinates were supposed to be. Although, if this was Los Angeles, like technically I don't think those coordinates are necessarily out in a camping field. But it was hard for me to figure that out. I guess I can't. I said I can't do coordinates very well. But anyways, that is the IQ point. They were apparently trying to get the West Coast feed of HBO, which was playing Real Sex. And Raj says he doesn't like it because it's always old women putting condoms on cucumbers. And that I don't think Real Sex is a show anymore, but that's what I remember it being too. Like old people with like huge bushes of pubic hair. And I'm like, I don't think this show's for me. Like, I'm enticed because it was back when I was like a teenager. And I'm like, ooh, it's about sex. Oh, and like I'm watching it, I'm like, this isn't really what I want it to be. Right?
I know, even as a child, like this isn't for me.
This is really something I'd be watching in sex ed.
I actually did not look up to see if it's still around, but I do remember it was like a really big thing, like before porn was like on the internet, like in every corner that you go. This was pretty much how you got to see porn.
This Skinamax, late night Cinemax movies, right? Which was like softcore porn, so you like might see some boobies.
I do remember, God, this sucks for me to say out loud because I know my dad is listening, so sorry.
Sorry. Cover your ears, Dad.
Cover your ears. Just fast forward 2 minutes. But yeah, public access, like that was like the shit in the 90s, where like they would just like 1 a.m. all of a sudden porn was on. Sorry, Dad. That's what I was doing.
Back where I lived, it was Channel 1 was the Spice Channel, I guess, or the Playboy Channel or something like that. And if you turned it on, like they blurred it, but at certain times of the night, like it was only partially blurred, so it was basically still like watching porn.
I know. Kids got it too easy these days. We had to fight for our porn.
We had to fight. We had to squint our eyes to make it look more realistic because it's all blurry.
Partial imagination.
Yeah. We had to think about our porn.
Yeah. Kids will never know the struggle these days.
So they do decide to switch it to the East Coast feed, and they get Dune, which they aren't fans of it. Raj says it's not that great of a movie, but he likes the deserts. And I kind of like the old one. I really like the new one. And mentioning cultural things going on, the sequel to the new one just came out, and I'm really excited to see it. I love some of the actors in it, and it's so beautiful. And I also wanted to say that technically, I just found this out, but this isn't an IQ point, but
yeah, I'm super excited for Dune too. I really liked the first parts. I did watch the original because I saw it. I think I saw it so long ago when I was a kid. Like I didn't even remember it, but I rewatched that just to like be ready for like the new one. So that I watched. I was like, oh my god, it's so dated.
Yeah.
I mean, for 2023 standards, yeah. But I guess in 2009 it was a little different. It wasn't as terrible, but you watch it, if you're watching it for like the first time now, you're like, oh god,
how did we live with this? But it was a time where we had to work for our porn, so things were just different.
Things were different back then.
Yeah. But apparently there was an abandoned version of Dune that was supposed to be directed by Alejandro Jodorowsky, who was apparently like the father of acid westerns. So I'm guessing, for some reason I'm thinking Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, but I don't know if that counts. But I looked up some examples, and Dead Man with what's his name? Johnny Depp, where he's like a cowboy dying in a kayak for like 2 hours or something. It's been a while since I saw it. But this was supposed to be made in the mid 1970s, and apparently they spent several $1 million on it, and it just never worked out. But it was supposed to have who was going to be in it? Let's see. I'm looking this up. Salvador Dali was supposed to be in it. Orson Welles, Gloria Swanson, Mick Jagger was supposed to be in it, and apparently Mick Jagger was supposed to be the person who gets played by Sting in the 80s version that did get made. And they used, a lot of, they set up the artwork and the motion book where it shows like the shots that they were going to do. And it still didn't get made, but they had Geiger do a lot of the artwork and some other big names. And apparently, even though this didn't get made, all these artists and workers like basically scattered and made movies with parts of this film that was never made. Like apparently the Terminator, when the Terminator looks and has the like red computer that analyzes people, that was supposed to be in this version of Dune. A lot of what was in Alien and Aliens was from this version of Dune, and again, it just never got made. There's a documentary on it that I really want to watch because I've never heard of this. I've only ever heard of the 80s version with Sting dancing around kind of, but again, kind of some cool stuff. So anyways, they decide that they are going back to the real sex because it's better than Dune, and they say it's too bad Sheldon couldn't come. And then they all have a good laugh at Sheldon's expense. And
then Raj and Howard finger each other again. I always like to document that.
Then it flashes over to Sheldon making a recording And this is where he basically says that he has to stay back and work on a paper of decays of highly excited massive string. Yeah. And this is where I did my IQ point on the meteor shower that he mentions that the guys all went to see, the Leonid meteor shower. And did you do any looking into this?
I did. Yeah, I looked into this as well. And I also looked into that star date that he mentioned too.
Oh, nice. I skipped over that one. What's he say about the star date?
All right, we'll start with the star date. So he says it's star date 63345.3. And we actually did an IQ point in a previous episode about star dates. It was episode 14, season 1, episode 14, the Nerdvana Annihilation. So we kind of talk about it then too, but you know what? It was so long ago, we'll talk about it again. And basically, in Star Trek, in all the different Star Treks, they actually have their own method of calculating a star date. So there really isn't a lot of consistency. So I actually went and found a bunch of different star date calculators. So anycalculator.com, stardatecalculator.com, and trekguy.org. So I punched in what the star date was in all of them just to kind of see like which one maybe Sheldon was actually using. Yeah. And I basically concluded that it was just a random number. This is just, they just randomly just did a 5-digit number plus a decimal. Because when I went to anycalculator.com, it would not work. I entered in the data and it wouldn't compute. So I don't think that site just must be buggy and not really working.
That's like what I was experiencing with the coordinates on Google Maps. Like, it took me to China, then it said cannot compute. I'm like, what? They're just I don't know.
It's through a black hole.
Makes sense.
God. Side note: Did you hear about that NASA discovered a huge black hole?
You know, I think I saw a picture of it, but maybe I saw something else.
It's supposed to be like 1,000 times the size of our sun or something like that, and it's been eating like the equivalent of like a planet a day.
Nice.
It's horrifying.
Is this what's his name? Ultron from Transformers? Who flies around these planets?
Unicron,
that's his name.
Yeah.
Unicron.
Ultron is the
Avengers.
Is the robot in the Avengers. Yeah.
Another robot, that's fair.
Yes, yeah.
Unicron.
Well, stardatecalculator.com shows this date to be September 29th, 2386 at 9:11 a.m. So then if I enter in the air date, assuming it's 8 p.m., and I just chose a random night or a random time at night, the star date should have been minus 382003.51. So not that one. Trekguy.org, I entered in the same Earth date and it outputted minus 313210.96. And when I entered in the star date that Sheldon said, it outputted April 7th, 2386 at midnight. So it got the same year as stardatecalculator.com, just a few months off.
Huh.
So I think the writers just wrote down some
Made
numbers.
something up.
Yeah. I just wanted to see if they did their due diligence. These calculators might not have been around at that time, so they probably just had to just do whatever.
Or I'm always curious if maybe they use a number that like means something to them and like an inside joke, but it doesn't actually correlate. And that's what I thought I was going to find out with the longitude and latitude. And I still wonder if it has something to do with that narrative, that fictional narrative GPS experience, that maybe they were part of it or enjoyed it or something, or maybe it was just random. But I want to. What is it? Where oftentimes animations will have like a certain room number. And that room number is like a certain room in film school that everybody had. Have you heard about that?
No, I haven't.
I'm going to look this up. I should know this off the top of my head, but... A113. And oftentimes when you see room numbers or numbers in general, in like Pixar films and Disney films, you'll see A113.
Oh, I'll have to keep my eyes open.
Animation room, yeah. So sometimes they throw in like Easter eggs like that. I'm curious. I don't think we found any so far, but I'm curious if we will.
Yeah.
So interesting. So next one, Leonid meteor shower. You want to take that too?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sure. I'll take it.
Go for
So the guys are going to watch the Leonid meteor showers, and I found this on space.com and wikipedia.com. The Leonids are actually an annual meteor shower, named after the Leo constellation, since it appears to have originated from this area in the sky. It's associated with the comet 55P Tempel-Tuttle, and are known for their spectacular meteor storms every 33 years. This comet was discovered independently by Ernest Tempel and Horace Tuttle in 1865 and 1866, respectively. The P in the name indicates that it's a periodic comet, with an orbital period less than 200 years. What we're seeing during these showers or storms is debris of ice and dust behind Tempel-Tuttle as it passes through our solar system. As the Earth passes through these streaks, the ice and debris heat up as they enter the atmosphere, making shooting stars. The Leonids are considered some of the fastest meteors, zipping through the sky at 44 miles or 71 kilometers per second, according to NASA. The last meteor storm, when you will actually see 1,000 meteors per hour, occurred in 2002, and since it orbits the sun every 33 years, the next meteor storm will take place in 2035. This year, in 2024, the Leonid meteor shower is active between November 3rd and December 2nd, and will peak on November 16th. We're expected to see about 15 meteors per hour, and you can see this anywhere. You just need to find a very dark spot, lean back, and enjoy. No binoculars or telescopes needed. To best see shooting stars, you want the widest visibility as possible. And this also answers another question that I kind of flagged, but I kind of just scratched that off as an IQ point, where Raj says that that we're passing through the meteors and not when they're coming to us, we're actually going to them. Yeah. We actually are orbiting into them.
Going through the debris field, right?
Yeah.
So
that's really cool. So I'm going to mark my calendar, November 16th.
A little different information than you got. And I think this is interesting because,
really?
Astronomy is not a precise science and things aren't mathematically equal or even in the universe. So maybe that's why it makes sense. But I got that, debris from the comet. And I was getting that, or from my understanding, the comet swings by every like 33 to 34 years. One site said like 33.25 years. So you can see things kind of changing over time. But I got that it's returning, and we're going to see some of the like major stuff because there's going to be more debris left behind in 2031, not 2034. You said it, right?
2035.
35. So
that's the next big storm, according to space.com.
Somewhere I saw 2031. So I'm curious what maybe it's passing by, but the next big storm is a few years after that. But I did get that.
You know what? Everyone, just do yourself a favor and watch it every year.
Every year, and then you won't miss out.
Yeah.
I also got the 1833. Apparently, that was one of the big years where a lot of debris was left behind, and apparently that was like the greatest meteor shower in U.S. history. And so that in 1966 was a really big one as well. But yeah, I heard that 1998 was a big year, and then again, someone said 2031, which would make sense with 33 years, but not the 34, 30. Like by changing it by a year, it changes everything. So maybe that's what I was seeing, or maybe I just made up stuff, which has been known to happen. And then I actually got that.
Were you on that fake internet again?
Yes. It looks so real, though. it's really just me with like an exo sketch or whatever.
Yeah. Storms.
Storms. And I also got that the peak's going to be November 17th this year. And what did you get? November 16th?
16th.
16th. And, it's also partially, it depends where you are in the world because it's day and night on different times. So maybe that's what I was seeing. But it is interesting that things aren't necessarily narrowed down to like a specific time. Like it goes on for a couple days and it's just like trying to see the peak of it because, we're floating through this whole field. But interesting.
Yeah, it says that it was active for almost like a month, but the peak is like somewhere in the middle of that time.
Yeah. And it's always in November at some point, right? Towards the...
I don't know about always November, but it says for this coming year, it will be November.
So I thought that was a cool little detail because, I didn't realize that the meteors were just remnants of a comet coming through. I thought they were comets, so whatever.
Oh, yeah. And then, I remember... I remember the first time I saw a shooting star, I was out camping. It was just like randomly too. I was like so blown away, and it was just like one that just kind of went. I was like, "Whoa! Oh my god!" So I can't even imagine seeing like thousands of them. Yeah, we're gonna die.
Not again. We're gonna be the dinosaurs.
End up in the tar pits.
I remember in high school there was a meteor shower. I don't think it was this one because I think I was driving, so it was like 2000 or 2001 or something. And I remember getting home. I think I was staying by myself. My parents left me alone quite a bit. And my friend and I, it was cold. I don't know if it was snowing. I just remember being really cold. And for some reason, remember we were drinking, and I remember like, oh, there's a meteor shower. And we pulled out some lawn chairs. I just remember sitting there like in my pajamas, like we're gonna watch this. And my friend's like, we're so cold, but there are a lot of meteors that night, so that's the only one I really remember sitting out watching, even though I was a little inebriated.
You didn't see anything. You're blackout drunk.
I was dreaming the whole thing.
I was just seeing stars everywhere. Oh my god!
And I had no friends in high school, so I was imagining the friend too. Friends and stars, it's wonderful. Okay, so anything else on that one?
Nope, all good.
So Sheldon stayed behind to work on his paper of decays and highly excited massive strings. And I was going to look into this, but as soon as I started, I just kind of did a quick U-turn and walked away. Did you do anything?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. I'm like, so if anybody wants to educate us on that, please send us an email and try to make it make sense, but we don't have PhDs. It was hard. But apparently it's a real thing. I just did not understand it. Sheldon claims he misses the warmth of human companionship and then bursts out laughing. So he's having fun. They're having fun. Everybody's happy. And we have the apartment or the opening, and then we're back in the apartment, and Sheldon is calling Siam Palace for food. And this is weird because he's trying to have them, like, assuming that they're going to divide up his appetizer and what he calls the golden treasure for two. He wants it for one. Because in other episodes, he's been upset that friends aren't dining with him because they won't be able to divide stuff up. So it's weird that he switched to thinking, oh, yeah, they'll divide it up when he's like, everybody has to go to dinner so we can all get equal portions. Does that sound familiar to you, too?
It does, yeah. Now that I didn't put any thought into it until you mentioned that, but yeah, like that's one of the reasons why. It's probably one of the only reasons why he likes human companionship is to actually get a bigger spread of food.
Mathematically makes things correct in food worlds. So yeah, I made a note of that, and then he apparently they say something about not being able to do it. And he brings up the mid-18th century king Rama IV of Siam, who divided his empire amongst the colonial powers of Europe in order to preserve his throne. And I looked a little bit into Wikipedia and factsanddetails.com on Rama IV. Did you do anything?
I did, yeah.
You want me to go first this time, and then you take over?
Be my guest.
All right. So I had never heard of this guy, but I thought the history of him was interesting. So he was part of the monarchy of Siam, which is now named Thailand. It was called Siam until 1939, and he was part of the House of Chakri, the Chakri dynasty, and his actual name was, I'm gonna mispronounce this probably, but Mongkut. And
I think that's how you say it.
You think so?
I think so.
He's the basis for the musical that became The King and I. And so he's pretty famous. He ruled from April 2nd, 1851 to October 1st, 1868, like 17 years. He was born in October 18th, 1804 and died October 1st, 1868. So he's only like 60-something years old. But he is known for signing treaties with the West. Basically, from my understanding, he saw what happened to China and Burma, that England came in and like colonized them, which is a nice way of saying didn't quite enslave them, but took over, invaded, and started stealing everything from them. And they fought back, and instead of making treaties or whatever, they basically just got extorted by the West, where we came in and started taking everything. And that's really caused a lot of problems throughout history. So apparently Rama IV was like, I don't want that to happen to Siam, to Thailand. And so before they protested or anything, he signed up negotiations and treaties, which allowed Britain, the US, and France and other countries basically let Siam have better deals with them. But again, they were pretty much, it still seems like they were taking advantage, but they got a better deal than Burma and China. And he's known for revolutionizing the Thai economy and bringing technology to the country, modern technology, but also kind of like this mix of religion and technology. So he's known for like bringing in railroads, bringing in more education, but also like really standing by ministries. And I saw quite a bit about Buddhism with him as well. But yeah, apparently he knew that he was on a losing side, so he quickly made the negotiations before things got worse or went to war. So that's my findings. What'd you get?
I found something very similar, but a little different. What sparked this is that I actually found that, according to IMDb, the writers goofed on this. That actually wasn't that King Rama IV of Siam lived in the mid-19th century, not the 18th century, as Sheldon said. So he actually lived at a different time. And the division that I actually kind of looked at that, you are right that he actually did acknowledge like Western influence. He was actually a really big fan of it and a really big proponent of it. But so he set the stage, but it was his son, King Rama V, that actually kind of put the nail in the coffin. It was actually him that actually executed the actual division and signed the treaties and everything like that.
Huh. You're right.
So that's what I found.
I was, that seemed weird for me, but when Sheldon says mid-18th century, that actually means 1700s. And Rama IV ruled in the 1850s. So that's the 19th century. So you're right. The writers goofed. Nice catch. And I was looking at that and it was like kind of like sticking out. I'm like, what's weird about that?
Wait,
now that you mention it.
I know, like there's some. I know it's like something's wrong here, but I can't pinpoint it.
Yeah.
And also, I did find a fun fact about King Rama IV.
Yeah.
He was celibate for 27 years while he was actually a monk. And then when he decided to leave monkhood to actually, and when he left it to take the throne at the age of 47, he kind of just went in the other direction and took 32 wives and produced 82 children.
If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. You're my wife.
So that's what 27 years of celibacy will do to a man. Especially one that will take the throne.
Jesus. Good for him. Bravo,
Yeah.
sir.
So, thunderous applause. Enter it in now. Wow. That's all I got.
Cool. So he claims that the restaurant are the King Rama's descendants and can handle some pad thai and dumplings if he could handle the whole country. And then they apparently hang up on him, and he starts to hear Penny screaming, so he rushes over and
Oh no,
knocks on
he hangs up on them after telling them that his sharply worded Yelp.com review took down a local muffin store.
Muffin store. That's right. I missed that note, but you're right. That is
Power of Yelp, man. I remember I was super into Yelp back in the day, like around this time where I was like really into like writing reviews and going to restaurants and everything. I actually, did you know that Yelp, I don't know if they still do this, but they actually had like elite members, people who actually reviewed a lot and actually got good comments and good feedback on their reviews, because like you can go on Yelp and you could actually give a thumbs up or thumbs down to someone's review. If you get enough good feedback, if you actually get enough good feedback, you become an elite member, and then you get invited to special parties.
Nice. Were you invited?
I've been to a couple special parties. They're actually really fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
Free food, drink, and everything like that. It was like, wow, this is pretty awesome.
Think of
all I got to do is be a giant asshole to a bunch of restaurants. No, I'm
done.
I feel like I was very fair.
I always felt like if I was in the restaurant food environments, I would probably see Yelp kind of like I see Rate My Professor, where I'm like, I like the good reviews, but I also like, anybody can be having a bad day and just be like, fuck this place, fuck this teacher. And like, it makes you look horrible. And so I'm like, I'm not going to pay too much attention to it. But I could see me getting worked up if I was a chef and somebody's like, I went there and got sick. They gave me food poisoning. And it's like, you can't assume it's the place. Whatever, So, all right, so Penny is screaming and Sheldon runs over and he proceeds to knock on every door, eventually finding her in the bathroom, and she's getting frustrated saying, just come in, don't knock again. And she's in the tub. I'm surprised she got a towel on, but she's in a towel.
And I thought she pulled down, I thought that was her curtain that she pulled down.
Is it? Oh, that makes sense.
That's
because there is a curtain. I thought it was a towel.
I was wondering, is this the only bathroom in her apartment? Granted, we've never seen the other side, but she does have a 1-bedroom apartment. So why would one bedroom have 2 bathrooms?
That's a good point.
So,
the only bathroom.
And why is the one bathroom in her bedroom? Just it's something I thought about.
Wow, huh?
Right?
Yeah. Maybe there's another toilet, but it's a small apartment for 2 toilets, and
it's like what apartment that size would have 2 toilets?
Although I've been to a couple parties where but they were houses, they were old houses, and the houses had 1 bathroom in a bedroom, and when I had to use the bathroom, they're like oh, it's in the bedroom. I'm like, I have to go through your bedroom? Can somebody walk me there? Because I feel weird.
Hold my hand, please.
Hold my hand.
Guide me.
Dark. So, yeah, that makes sense that it's the shower curtain, because I was like, why is she holding a robe? But, I'm watching this on a small screen, so not a robe, a towel. But she's in there with covered up, and she says she has dislocated.
Wait, are you not watching this in your theater?
No, I watched this on my iPad.
Come on, guy. You got that theater.
the theater, like, I'm not able to pause it and take notes as easily in the theater because of the delay with the projector. And I like pausing and rewinding a little bit and redoing stuff.
That's fair.
I do have the theater. If we have more,
it's reserved only for Frasier and The Office.
The Office and Frasier. Nobody else will watch anything else. Fuck you, Dune. I don't care how massive your budget was and how beautiful you are. Yeah. You get watched on my iPhone.
Dune 2, you will be on my iPad.
Hi. So I did a little research into dislocated shoulders because I was curious and I couldn't find a direct answer on this, but he helps her get dressed, and I'm not sure she would be able to put a shirt on if she had just dislocated. I think it would be too painful, but maybe he knew how to put it on because there are like a bunch of YouTube videos about how to put shirts on if you have shoulder surgery, and it's kind of the same dynamic that you like start with one sleeve and you don't move your arm, you lay the shirt out first, and basically common logic. But I did find out that he is right when he said right humerus no longer seated in the glenoid socket, basically saying the upper arm bone gets pulled out of the socket of the shoulder. And I was looking at the Mayo Clinic and the Washington University Orthopedics, and they say this usually happens from a fall when an arm is already stretched out or if the arm is forced above the head too far. And so it makes sense. Maybe she was holding the curtain and slipped, and it caused her arm to go up, which would make sense. The treatment is usually what's called closed reduction, which is using gentle maneuvers. I don't know how gentle you can be with this, to help put the shoulder back into position. And this is where we usually see in movies where they go hold still and pull it back in. But sometimes that does not work, and you may need surgery or a splint. They say symptoms are out of place shoulder. Like apparently you can see it up to some extent. From what I was seeing, there's swelling, bruising, intense pain, and inability to move the joint, which is part of what I was thinking. I don't know if she could put a shirt on. I don't know why she didn't just take a robe or something, because that might be, I don't know. I also found out that there's a couple different types. There's interior, where the bone comes out and goes in front of the body, versus posterior, where it goes out and gets like kind of pushed behind the socket, which seems more painful. Hers looked like it was kind of in front. So apparently there's another one. There's also what's called subluxation, which is when the bone partially slides in and out of place, and it's not necessarily a full dislocation. So apparently that can be painful as well, but it's not necessarily the full dislocation that could require surgery. So maybe that's also what she had and was just saying it was dislocated, but she does get the shirt on. So I'm curious if anybody's had his shoulder dislocated and how painful it was until you got it fixed or whatever. I've also heard that like in movies where they like pop it back into place and then they're like throwing baseballs again. Like apparently it still hurts for a while. It's not perfect, but
I would bet.
Right? Yeah. I think was it Blade, where he's jumping across roofs, and he has a doctor with him, and she like dislocates her arm, and he pops it back in, and she's like running again. I'm like, I don't know. It seems like that'd be really painful unless she wasn't a vampire. So
maybe adrenaline at that point. If other
Yeah.
vampires are trying to get her. You know what? It'll be fine. Just
I'll
book
feel
it.
this in the morning, but right now I'm running. So that's what I got on dislocated shoulders.
I guess on that note, I will say I did find I thought that there was a bit of a plot hole, or at least something that they could have explained a little bit better, that they didn't call an ambulance.
Yeah, I had a problem with that too.
Yeah, it's like
it would take too much time.
Well, the general rule is, well, it's always better in a time of crisis, and this goes for anybody out there. Always call an ambulance if in a time of crisis like this. If any movement is going to make it worse, which realistically it would make it worse.
Yeah,
calling she says that there isn't time and that she can't wait that long. They would actually get to her faster.
Yeah.
Because they could actually get to her with a siren on, and they could start administering treatment right there on the spot.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the reasons why they always recommend calling an ambulance, because you'll actually get treatment while you're en route to the hospital.
And apparently the medics and ambulances are very well trained. I remember hearing I can't remember, some author wrote just like a small detail of the medics in the ambulance couldn't do something and they had to wait for a nurse. And he got a letter after this book got published saying, I'm a medic in an ambulance and we know a lot more about it than the nurses would, and we would have been able to treat that. And the writer was like, I'm so sorry I got that wrong. I didn't even know I had to research it. But
I just kind of threw that in there.
Yeah, wow. People are actually reading my book. What the fuck? But you know what I could have seen and could have understood was if she said, I can't afford an ambulance.
I was going to say the exact same thing, because for anybody out there that is not from America, we have to pay for our own medical. And insurance covers a little bit. Depending on your insurance, it'll cover only partial of an ambulance ride.
I think ambulance rides like start off at like $1,000 too.
Yeah,
they are not,
if not
cheap.
more. Yeah, they are not cheap, and your insurance will not cover it. At least most of it.
My partner has a friend who I can't remember where he moved, but he was crossing the street and somebody ran him over, and it was a hit and run. And he remembers waking up and the cops being there. And apparently the first thing he said was, don't call an ambulance. I can't afford it. Like he just got hit by a car and his first thing was, I can't afford. So that would have made sense to me because she is a waitress and probably has not great health insurance, and health insurance doesn't help with ambulances much anyway. So
I actually had a friend that did that. The exact same thing happened. He was very drunk. He hurt himself, and like it looked worse than what it really was, but there was like blood all over him. We were going to call an ambulance, but he was like freaking out. I was like, no, I don't have insurance and I don't have money right now. So like long story short, we eventually got him to a hospital. But
gotta love America, where we fight not to take ambulances.
Yeah, we fight to not have medical. Yeah.
Wow, that's really fucked up.
Thanks, America.
Thanks, America. Hi. So Sheldon claims that she doesn't have any traction in her shower or bathtub, and tubs are slippery, and that he has whimsical duck stickers on the bottom of his tub, which is where he, the title of the episode comes from, right? And he says they're whimsical because they're holding umbrellas, which makes them whimsical because they don't need umbrellas and they don't have the ability to hold them. So
yep.
I was like, he's got a point.
That does sound like a very cute bath mat, though.
Right? I like that. Maybe I'll add some in my shower or bathtub.
It's funny. I actually just, because of my kid, he's been standing up during bath time a lot. So I was like, oh crap, I need to get a bath mat. And then I didn't realize that, like, I didn't even think about this, but my bathtub is textured on the bottom, so I don't technically need a bath mat.
Yeah.
So I bought a bath mat, and then I tried to install. I was like, why aren't you sticking in? What the hell? And then I was like, oh, it's textured. Fuck.
Rob, you need to use super glue.
Some lather with some epoxy.
So this is where Penny asks for the ride, but she can't drive, and technically Sheldon doesn't drive, although he has a learner's permit, and previous episode talks about this. And he says that he has logged some time in a what's that called? A
simulator,
and it hasn't gone well, right? And he says it's kind of ironic because her lack of 99-cent adhesive ducts may lead them to dying in a fiery car crash. I don't know if that's necessarily ironic, but
no, I clocked that too. It's like, that's not really irony, but
yeah, it's funny. Well, maybe not funny, but not funny, haha, but funny, weird. So back to the campsite, and Leonid wishes Penny could have come, but she had to work. And Raj isn't too great on that. Happy about that idea because he knows Leonard would be in the tent having sex, while Raj would be out watching Howard hump a cactus. And so he's glad it's just the three of them. Howard returns and says that there are two middle-aged school teachers right over the ridge, and they aren't not unattractive, and they reek of desperation. I mean, they ask how old, and he goes 50 or 55. And this made me laugh really hard. Raj says, menopause, nature's birth control.
Well, it's funny because I was just thinking, like, if you actually watch a lot of like TV these days, women in their 50s and 55 are still gorgeous.
Yeah. I wonder if that's partially becoming more mature and being more closer to that age. I'm like, oh, I'm more attracted to that age range.
I kind of thought about that too, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know, they're still doing it.
But when I look at pictures from like the 50s or 60s or 70s of women like in their 20s, it's like I don't find them very attractive. Their hairdos are like beehives and stuff. I'm like, what the?
I thought about this because I actually started watching Golden Girls not that long ago, and they're actually like they're only in their 50s.
Yeah,
like at that time, and not to like knock on them or anything like that or be an asshole or anything, but they looked a lot older. But I feel like it has to do with the style.
Yeah, the style just looked older to me. I don't, or maybe because I was so young that I associated the style with being older. I don't know. But yeah, so Howard pulls out some cookies they gave him, and he says that they were really nice teachers. They had a VW microbus and tie-dyed Grateful Dead t-shirts. So we know right away that these are pot cookies, although I call bullshit because I've never had anything with pot in it that doesn't taste at least vaguely of marijuana. Like it's maybe capsule. I don't think I've ever done like a capsule. But any edibles, gummy bears with it, chocolate with it, cookies, brownies, always taste like it. I can also say on bullshit on this that it usually takes like an hour to 2 hours to kick in for me. So they would be sitting around quite a while. It's not like taking a hit from a joint, which is pretty instantaneous. Like there's been times where I'm like, man, that's not really doing anything. And after like 10 more minutes, I'm on the ground like, what's going on? But it takes so long that it's like, oh man. So we are back at Penny's apartment, and Sheldon is getting her dressed. He sees no organization and asks her what panties she wears on Mondays. And she says she doesn't need panties, just shirts and a shirt. And Sheldon shares a wisdom of truth from his mom that you should always wear underpants in case you're in an accident. Penny says she's already been in an accident, and Sheldon says they could always be in another one. And I agree, because technically, this is morbid, but everybody who dies, like, your bowels give up and you relieve yourself when you pass. So
it's something that Hollywood always ignores.
Yeah. So it might be nice to have some underpants to help protect, anybody who's handling your corpse after the accident. I would imagine. So Sheldon's got, he's got a wise mother. Sheldon pulls out clothes, and I get a point for being like Sheldon here, because he cannot get a match to save his life. He goes through like 4 things, and she's like, no. And I've had this happen before. My girlfriend's asked me she's like, could you pick out some clothes for me? And we're going camping, or I'm bringing some clothes for her. And she looks at them and is just like, what the fuck were you thinking? And I'm like, I don't know. I thought they looked good. Cannot pick out matching.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. And yeah, every time I go on a trip with my wife, she is always such a last minute packer, and I'm an early packer. So I get really antsy. So I pack her stuff for her. And then she goes through it, and she's always just like, what were you thinking? Why did you pack this? I was like, baby, I just packed the things that I thought that you need.
I thought it was good. I'm sorry.
I thought it looked good. Wah, wah.
So
sorry if you hear that. My kid's still awake and he's screaming. So just ignore that. It's a ghost child. Just ignore it.
There's no child in this house, only ghosts. So finally gets Penny something she thinks is cute, and he says they need to check her for a concussion. And he mentions that, or she says no looking, and he says she doesn't want him to see her naked. And he mentions that myths often have the theme of people not looking. and he mentions Lot and his wife, Perseus and Medusa, Orpheus and Eurydice. I think Eurydice.
I've always said
And
Eurydice, but then
Eurydice.
again, yeah, I did not look it up, so
Uh,
Eurydice
I,
it is.
I had a little note to look these up, and I neglected to do so. I didn't highlight it, so I missed it.
All right, let's just do it now because I think
Yeah.
we've had someone in the past complain that all it takes is like 10 seconds.
That's true. Okay, I'll take Lot and his wife. Oh, so yeah, Lot's wife was the one who was running away from the city in Genesis, who was told not to look back. I know this one. I just forgot the names. And of course, she looks back and becomes a pillar of salt because that's what happens.
Yeah, I actually did a quick IQ point on all of them.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, just because I thought it would be nice to have like a little rundown. Some of them are like really easy to remember, like Perseus and Medusa. That's like kind of everywhere, especially with like Percy Jackson and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's out. And I feel like Medusa is always, or a Gorgon is always in like some sort of Greek show.
Yeah, everybody's always working with Medusa. I get actually a lot of Medusa papers in my research class because she was seen or portrayed as like the villain, but if you read the story, like she didn't do anything wrong and she's just punished, and she's like becoming a sign for feminism, like women being mistreated and abused. So
Yeah, justice for Medusa. I remember I saw a documentary on History Channel about true Greek mythology, and she has a very fucked up story.
yeah,
And yeah, she's not the villain. I mean, she becomes like a monster and everything because the gods turned her into that, but she did not deserve it.
you only take so much shit before you become the villain, right?
All right, so I will run through this really quick then,
Right,
and we'll go over pronunciations as we go through it.
Yeah.
So you already kind of went over Lot and his wife. So Genesis 19, for disobeying God by watching Sodom's destruction, Lot's wife is turned into a pillar of salt, while Lot and his daughters escape. Perseus and Medusa, this is the very short version. It is Greek mythology. Perseus, a demigod son of Zeus, and mortal woman Danae, whom was the daughter of King Acrisius. When Perseus was born, King Acrisius thought Perseus would grow up to kill him, so he and his mother, the king's daughter, were cast away to the sea in a wooden chest. They were found by a fisherman that was the brother of King Polydectes. This king fell in love with Danae and made her his slave. Wanting to protect his mother, he was tasked to slay Medusa, the Gorgon, which we'll just skip ahead and say he does. So
It takes some fighting, but there's a mirror involved, but right?
Yeah.
But he does. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler, but this is thousands of years old. So.
Yeah.
And I believe, based off Wikipedia, her name is pronounced Eurydice.
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 I know Eurydice, sir.
So Orpheus and Eurydice. Orpheus, a son of Apollo, was in love and married to Eurydice. One day in the woods, she was bitten by a snake and died instantly. In Orpheus's grief, he went to the underworld and confronted Hades, the lord of the underworld. He played a song for him regarding his grief, and Hades was so moved that he allowed Eurydice to return to the mortal world with Orpheus, with one condition. She would have to follow behind him while walking out of the caves from the underworld, and he could not turn to look at her as they walked. He thought that this would be a simple task, but he could not hear her footsteps at all. And once only feet away from the exit, he lost his faith and turned around, sending her back to the underworld forever.
Wow.
Yeah. Poor Eurydice. Poor Medusa. I'm noticing a lot of bad things happen to women.
Yeah, right? Oh. How about that? It's almost as if men collected all these stories and wrote them.
So I know. No, that can't be it.
No.
Men would never do that. They are fair and just.
Yes, always. Have you played any of? I think I've brought it up before. Hades.
You brought it up, but I've never played it.
All right. Orpheus is in it, I believe. It's been a while since I played it, but it's such a good game. And the sequel's coming out pretty soon, I think. So it's good. All right.
Well,
So
speaking of Greek mythology, I'm going to take a little deviation, and I did binge the first season of Percy Jackson. Were you into that? I always speak very highly of the books on this podcast. I've mentioned it several times. I still love the books. Great audiobooks, especially if you're driving, because it's so simple, because they're meant for preteens. The Disney Plus show was pretty good. It's definitely meant for kids, but it was very well made.
Is it better than the movie?
Oh, the movie was a train wreck.
I never watched the movie. I never read the books either. I just know that Alexandra Daddario is like one of her first movies, and
yeah,
she's
and bound wow.
Yeah, she has beautiful eyes. It was like, wow.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia with her?
Oh, maybe I did, and I just kind of missed it, or just passed. I binged like 9 seasons in like a couple weeks. So
it's like one night.
It's very easy to forget some stuff.
She falls in love with what's his name?
Charlie.
Charlie, yes,
Mac?
the rat killer. Charlie, and he like secretly like does uses her to make the waitress jealous. And
because he's in love with her.
Alexandra Daddario is just like so beautiful, and she's like, "I love you, I really love you," and he's like, "I was using you. Can you get that through your stupid head?" Like, it's so weird.
Yeah, because like the entire series is based on like not based on, but like he's like in love with that girl like the entire series.
And they never say her actual name. It's always the waitress, right?
I still like one giant core memory is The Nightman Cometh.
Yeah.
The musical where he puts on the play to like impress her, and he's like, if you watch this movie or watch my play, then I'll leave you alone. And at the very end she's like, okay, we're done now, right? And just one leaves.
He like proposes to. He's like, will you be my wife? And she's like, we're done.
That's his like wife in real life, right?
I was just gonna say they're really married. Yeah. It's like I think they met on a episode of, is it Reno 911? They played like siblings that were into each other or something.
Oh my god!
Apparently hit it off.
I never watched all of Reno 911, but every time it would come on like Comedy Central and I would watch it, it would always be amazing. I don't know why I never watched it.
Right? Yeah, I've seen a couple scenes and I've always laughed, but I never bothered sitting down and actually watching through it.
Oh, you know what? The same thing with Key and Peele. I've been watching random skits on YouTube, and it's like, this is like the greatest sketch show like ever.
Hilarious.
I don't know why I'm not watching it. Yeah.
That's
but sorry for that deviation.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rick. We kind of deviated.
We got to focus more.
Yeah. Focus. On to bosom grabbing.
Yes. All right, so back to it. He grabs her and she says, "Does that feel like my arm?" And he's like, "No." And she goes, "You can go ahead."
Maybe you should let it go.
Maybe you should let it go. I just love the way she gives that line. It's just her character. Maybe you should let it go. Perfect. So apparently a little booby grabbing. I don't know why I yelled on to it. But he
had to analyze it. Like, wait, what is this?
What is this? It doesn't feel like an arm. Let it go. So back to the guys camping, and it's clear that they are high as can be. Leonard says the stars are really pretty, and Howard says the nursery rhyme about Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, right? And Raj says it's a great, beautiful rhyme that he should write it down before somebody steals it. And they ask when the meteors will get there, but Raj said, or this is where they say, when will the meteors get to us? And Raj says that they're actually moving towards the meteors, right? Because they're going to move past the debris field. And Leonard says he can feel the Earth moving, and it's moving too fast. And I've been that high before, where it seems like the world's moving too fast. And you're like, no. And he tells Rob, doesn't even ask. He says, Raj, slow it down. And Raj makes a weird face and says, how's that?
That was
Leonard
amazing.
says,
I love that scene.
I don't know what he's actually doing, but he thinks he's doing something.
He's slowing the Earth down. Hello.
And Leonard says that's better, so he must have done something. And Howard repeats himself that the stars are beautiful. And Raj starts laughing, and we start hearing him mimic Howard's American accent, because apparently...
Leonard's American accent.
Leonard's American... I thought it was Howard's at first. But Leonard's... and says everything the American accent makes everything sound stupid, right? And they start laughing. And that comes up again later. But we are in the car now, and Sheldon says it's his first time operating an actual motor vehicle. Oh, this is where it comes in, that he's has his learner's permit and he's logged hours, but it's never gone very well. And Sheldon starts setting up the car and puts his mirror in the right position so that it can see part of the handle. And then he says, where's the control for the passenger side mirror? And she points it out, and he goes, okay, where's the passenger side mirror? Apparently it's been knocked off in Hollywood somewhere, so it's not there. He moves his seat, and then has to start all over again, because when he moves his seat, it screws everything up.
Well, I actually found it... Originally, when I watched this, I thought to myself, I find it very hard to believe that he'd be bad at driving. Because with all the video games that they play, you'd think that there'd be some hand-eye coordination, there'd be some driving games that they would play and everything like that. So it's kind of like the same thing. That's how I kind of figured out driving, was because I played like Mario Kart growing up, or, Daytona USA, or things like that. So it's like, I find it very hard to believe that he'd be this bad at driving. But not to spoil anything, but it gets addressed later.
Oh,
I
was going to say, from what we're seeing in this episode, he's not bad at driving. He's just like overly cautious, and so he doesn't really go fast. He's maybe going below the speed limit. And technically, you're allowed to go a little bit under the speed limit. What is it, like up to 20 miles under or something, or if
you're on the freeway? But no, not even then, because if you go too slow, it becomes a hazard.
Yeah,
I thought it was only like 10.
Maybe it's 10,
like 10 miles an hour or something.
But you don't have to go the speed limit necessarily. If you don't feel it's safe, you can always put your hazards on. And the notion is speed limit is a speed limit. You can't go faster than it. That's the big deal. And I've had friends having to take... I've never had to take one, but like in Nebraska, they would have a course where you could take this course instead of getting a ticket. And it's like 24 hours of learning about the dangers of speeding.
Wait, 24 hours?
Maybe not 24 hours. It's probably 8, but people are like, it just goes on forever. And it's just...
I think it's so mind-numbing. And there's a speed trap heading from going towards Crystal Mountain. Mm-hmm. Did you ever ski at Crystal Mountain?
I haven't yet.
Okay, well, like, there's like... You have to go some like back roads and everything like that.
Yeah.
There was like this apparently a known speed trap there, which I didn't know. So I got caught, obviously. And then they gave me the ticket, but they gave me the option, like, you still have to pay it, but you have to take this course if you don't want it on your record.
Yeah.
And it was 3 hours long, but it felt like 24 hours.
24 hours. I swear the one in Nebraska was like 7 or 8 hours, because I remember my friends having to go to lunch and then come back after lunch.
Oh my God.
It just keeps going. It feels like 24 hours. How old am I now? Whatever it is. It's been 30 minutes. Oh God.
And now we have to start over since you interrupted me.
Now where were we? Back to the beginning. No. Just, you know what? I'll just take the ticket. I don't know. Back to the camping scene, and this is an amazing scene. I put a note that I loved everything about it. We basically see all three of them having different conversations. They're sitting on rocks looking at the stars. And Raj starts off with saying, if he could talk to rabbits, he would be their king. And so his conversation is about being ruling over rabbits. And Leonard's talking about hating his name that it has the word nerd in it. So it's horrible. And Howard confesses that he lost his virginity to his cousin for some reason. Or confesses it for some reason. Raj says that he would be kind to his rabbit subjects at first.
I feel like these are things that are just always on their mind, but the weed is just kind of unleashing it. So he must always have his cousin on his mind.
Right? He's always feeling guilty about it.
Yeah.
Leonard says that Angelo would be a cool name. It has Angel Angelo in it.
Yeah.
Howard elaborates on sleeping with his cousin. They were at a funeral and their eyes locked over the pickled herring. And they never meant for it to happen. And then Rush says that he would hold a great ball for the president of France, but the rabbits would hate him by then and wouldn't come. So he would be embarrassed and would then eat all the lettuce in the world in front of them. He would make them
I'll
watch.
make them watch.
I think that's my favorite line of the episode. Like, one of my favorite in the series. I'd eat them in front of them and make them watch. And Leonard says that people could call him Angie if he was named Angelo. Howard says he can't look at pickled herring without becoming aroused and ashamed. And I did it. It's not an IQ point, but it's just a very similar. Like, I don't know if they've seen this movie, but the joke was really similar to a movie called Judas Kiss, which is like impossible to find these days, which is weird because it had Carla. How do you pronounce her name? Gugino?
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. I've always thought she was a beautiful woman, and this movie was so great. I'm always disappointed that it's so hard to find. And then she's been in all of most of what's his name's works. The guy who does he did Midnight Mass, Fall of the House of Usher, Haunting of Hill House. I can't remember his name right now. But she's like in most of those. He did the adaptation of Stephen King's Gerald's Game, where she's like having sex with her husband out in a cabin, and he handcuffs her to a bed, and he falls over dead, and she's handcuffed, trying to escape.
I've heard of that movie. Yeah,
it's good. I liked it. But anyways, in this movie Judas Kiss with Carla Gugino, Emma Thompson, and Alan Rickman is in it. And he tries to put on like a Southern accent, which is really weird. But if you ever watch it, it's worth it. Like I thought it was all good, but Alan Rickman's portrayal of like the Southern detective was just, it's worth it for that. But Carla Gugino's character is talking about meeting her boyfriend and how she was robbing a grocery store or something and dropped in to the freezer section. I can't remember. And he was already locked in there because he fell asleep during a shift. And maybe not the freezer, but like a pantry or something. So they were both locked in there and ended up staying up all night. Had to be a freezer. Talking and having sex right there and in front of like the deli meat and stuff. And she has a line saying, "I can't even look at a steak now without getting wet." And so when Howard says, "I can't look at pickled herring without being aroused and ashamed," I'm like, I know that line. So it's a good joke.
Okay.
But reminded me of a really good movie that I had to throw out there. And that line just makes me crack up every time. It's so absurd. Like, what? But all right. So we are now in the car. Sheldon is driving.
I was going to say, like, I thought that he was going to mention the Corolla. Because back in Creepy Candy Coding, he says that he lost his virginity to a Corolla. Because Bernadette was saying that her mom was afraid that she would hit a bump and
lose her virginity. Right?
But she lost it in was it a Camry? And then and then Howard said Corolla. So I thought that meant he actually lost his virginity, at least inside of the Corolla.
Yeah,
so I thought he was at least going to mention it was in the back of the car, but he just said it was at his uncle's at the funeral.
So maybe they went out to Corolla during the funeral.
Probably,
but it would have been a nice little...
A nice callback.
Yeah. We went to a Corolla.
Yeah, we went to the back of the Corolla. Toyota probably didn't approve that line. Like,
no.
We do not condone this.
He did what with his cousin? Take that line out. So Sheldon is driving slow, and Penny tells him to go faster, but the engine makes a sound, and a light comes on, and Penny says the light has always been on. And this really gets Sheldon worked up, saying this is when you need to take it to a mechanic. And I get 1 point for being like Sheldon here, because if a light comes on, my OCD kicks in, and I can't sleep at night. I'm like, I have to drive that car and the light's on. Somebody's like, it's an oil change. It's not a big deal. I'm like, the car's going to fall apart. So 1 point for being like Sheldon.
It could. I've gotten dangerous to a point where when the check engine light is on, you don't necessarily have to freak out. You'll freak out when the check engine light starts blinking. And I've been there before.
My car, over Christmas break, I was driving it home from my parents, and it's like a 30-minute drive and not very far. I got within 5 minutes of my house, and a message came up saying low coolant, pull over right now, emergency. There's noises and lights. I'm like, what the fuck? And pulled over, but it almost made me crash. It was so startling. But apparently I had a coolant leak, and I put water in it. They told me to put water in it to get it down to the dealership, and they fixed it for me. But apparently that's bad. That can cause a lot of problems. And I had no coolant. I know nothing about cars, but that freaked me out when that came on.
Yeah, something like that happened to me around the same time too.
Yeah.
It's like, oh god, I'm gonna die.
Oh god. Oh no. Yeah, we didn't die though. We lived, but it was terrifying.
Lived to tell the tale.
Yeah. Take that, coolant system. So Sheldon asks why she has the Chinese character for soup tattooed on her buttocks, right? And she says it's not soup, it's courage. He says that, well, it takes courage to show that dedication to soup, but it is actually soup. And she says, wait, how did you see it if you weren't looking? He apologizes, and he mentions the hero always peaks. So back to the mythology that the heroes are always peaking, right? I guess Lot didn't, but his wife did. There's always some peaking. Back at the camp, the guys are starving.
Did you look at what the characters are?
No, I didn't.
I actually did some Google translating
nice
on this just to kind of see. So I know we're an audio podcasts, but we are on YouTube. But you know what? Well, for YouTube fans, I will put it right somewhere so you can see it right now. Well, I looked up the Cantonese. So there's Mandarin versus Cantonese characters.
Yeah.
And then I had to, so I hopped on Google Translator, which of course they didn't have back in 2009.
Yeah.
But so that's why I would imagine she had a hard time trying to figure it out. But Mandarin, so on Google Translator, they have what's called simplified Chinese and traditional Chinese. So Mandarin is simplified Chinese and Cantonese is traditional Chinese. So I'm going to post the Cantonese and the Mandarin and soup and courage. So if you're on YouTube, you can see it, right? So let's just say right there. And
there.
And then if you're listening to us, check it out on Instagram. I'll put it on. I'll do an Instagram post.
Do they look?
But they're very different.
Very different.
You know, I'll screenshot it right now and send it to you.
And part of this is that translations, even if you do have Google Translator, translations aren't perfect, and you really need to know context, because we could get something like soup, and somebody could the argument over, is cereal soup, is the ocean soup, and that translations, without context, you could get a character that means something slightly different. I guess soup and courage are completely different, but they do not look the same. In fact, it looks like courage has two characters, right?
Yeah.
So that's terrifying.
So she got bamboozled.
Although soup's really good, so there's nothing wrong with that. I love soup.
Yeah. What kind of soup? What's your favorite soup?
Oh shit.
Putting you on the spot. And a follow-up question after that, but I'll wait till you answer.
Going with hot soup versus cold soup. Cold soup. I've been on cruises where they'll have like chilled fruit soups, and
Gazpacho?
no, like gazpacho is like vegetables and stuff, right?
It's like a pureed, like tomato, like it's
Tomato.
basically. I mean, I guess it's not. Yeah, I guess specifically it is like a pureed vegetable soup.
Well, I guess tomatoes are fruit, so that counts.
Yeah.
But they had like one time a banana, I believe banana rum soup. I still remember like that was so.
Are you
good.
sure that's just not a dessert?
Dessert soup is dessert a soup. Who knows? It's all the context.
God, I remember it being. Oh, I'll tell you after.
My go-to is I love chicken and dumpling, but I also love Italian wedding soup. It's really good. And in high school,
Italian wedding soup was not a big thing in Washington when I was growing up. So I never seen an Italian wedding soup until I moved to Pennsylvania, and I love it. Oh my god, it's
right?
So
it's
good.
I did not know it in
with
Kansas.
the little encini pearls, the sausage, kale. Oh my god.
Yeah, I didn't know what it was in Kansas, and then I moved again. Yeah, Pennsylvania, and my high school cafeteria. The cook was amazing. He made his own wedding soup for us on Wednesdays, and it was like even if I was full or not hungry, I always got the side order of soup because wedding soup is just so good. Those little meatballs are. So, what about you? Favorite soups?
Well, my favorite soup depends on how you define a soup, because I will say it, and I know a lot of people in my circle that don't classify it as soup, and we've gotten to very, very spirited debates on this. Like, borderline, I don't want to talk to you again for like a week. Like, don't even talk to me. Like, I am this mad at you.
Fuck you and your soup choices.
Yeah, I was like, well, fuck you, man. Like, I don't even want to talk to you. And they're trying to turn the world against me. But I classify pho as a soup.
I would too.
It is covered in broth. It is very heavy on noodles, but I wouldn't call it a noodle dish. Everyone pretty much called it like and ramen too.
Yeah.
So ramen, yes, specifically is a noodle itself, but it is always served in a state of broth,
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I classify that as a soup. You know what? They serve it to you with a spoon. So hello.
Sure. Yeah.
I call these soups. So I would say pho and ramen.
That's especially like, people think of like just like the freeze-dried packets of ramen. But if you go to like an actual ramen place where they like hand make the ramen stuff.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And I think we've talked before where they have like a soft boiled egg in it and butter and
oh yeah.
No,
on next level is the soy marinated soft boiled egg.
Ooh.
Where you basically soft boil you soft boil the egg, you crack the shell, and then you marinate it in soy, like soy and sugar and stuff like that. And then you cut it and put it in the ramen.
Would you classify chili as a soup?
Yeah. I'd say in the grand category, that is soup. You eat it with a spoon. I mean, it can be. I think it's pretty brothy. It's pretty liquidy. I mean, it can be chunky, but I consider it a soup. But it is kind of interesting that chili does get its own call out, like on menus where it's like soup and chili.
Yeah, right. It's never the
daily
soup.
It is. I classify it as a soup because I think of soup as a large category. But yeah, I still remember it was because I was out camping with a group of people. There was like 20 of us, and this is what started it. Was I was in charge of making the ramen during the camping trip. We got the big pot. I threw in like 10 packets of ramen, and I cooked it up and everything. And I called everyone, all right, soup's up, soup's ready. And then a friend of ours, I'll bleep him out.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, but he called me out and it was like, the fuck are you talking about? Like, soup's ready. I'm just letting you know the soup's ready. He's like, dude, that's not soup. I was like, how is it not soup? It's covered. It is completely submerged in a broth, and you drink the broth at the end. You don't have to. It is always optional, but most people do. It's like, how is it not soup? And that's what created I swear to God, it went on for like 5 years. Like every once in a while, somebody would bring it up. Someone would be at like a restaurant and like take a photo of the menu and said, oh, this menu classified, it's in the soup section. Or, oh, this one says it's in the noodle section. It's like, it was such a long debate, and it could have ended friendships.
Damn.
It got really intense. Like we got into like drunken, loud screaming matches over this. It's like the most ridiculous thing, but we did.
Just imagine like people camping and being like, ramen's not a soup, and you look at them and the next scene is like you covered in blood and like people laying down like it's a soup.
And I became Jason. Insert hockey mask. That's how Jason was born. Soup's up, motherfuckers.
His tagline, soup's on.
Well, anybody who's actually still listening to this conversation, Rick, you probably tuned out, but
Man,
what do you think?
At all.
This has nothing to do with the episode. But if you're still with us, shoot us an email, shoot us a DM, comment in the section below. What's your favorite soup? Do you think ramen and pho are soup? I'm interested in starting this debate over again.
I'm bringing it back up, bitches. Nothing to do with the episode. All right, back to the episode. Right. The guys are starving.
Too bad they don't have soup.
Right? So it has something to do with the episode. They were hungry. Mm-hmm. And they're camping like you were camping. So they're searching the cooler for pudding cups. And Howard says, what about Slim Jims? But apparently Raj used the Slim Jims to eat his pudding cup. And he goes, it was sweetie and meaty at the same time. Sweetie and meaty. And they are out of food, but they do have the blue ice packs, which apparently look like big otter pops. And I could see me.
I've always thought that too. Oh my God.
I just want to cut it open and suck, but that would be bad for my insides. So we don't do it. And they're kind of looking around, and Howard says, maybe we should check for more pudding. And Leonard says, okay, and goes back into the cooler. At the hospital, Sheldon fills out the form for Penny. And apparently he writes down the cause of accident as a lack of adhesive ducts. And Sheldon asks about her medical history, coming to, does she get migraines? Well, she's starting to get one. And he thinks she might be pregnant because she's looking a little puffy. And then he asks about her last menstruation, and she gets appalled, and he writes in progress, which is a little offensive, but he's, I don't know what he's doing with that. So she's going to hit him. He moves on to psychological disorders, says she has subpsychotic rage and possible Tourette's when she calls him an ass. And I did IQ point on this. You do anything on Tourette's?
No, but I will just say that, like, this is why this episode is so good. Like, with the guys getting high, Penny and Sheldon's interaction, this was just so great.
It was a great back and forth. It was two great stories. Does that feel like an arm? It doesn't feel like an arm. And yeah, let it go. So I picked this specifically because I kind of probably shouldn't piss me off, but it kind of pisses me off when Tourette's is always stereotyped as just obscene tics of saying words and profanity, and that's not what it is. And I wanted to look more into this, but I got this from Mayo Clinic, National Institute of Neurological Disorders, and Stroke.gov, and the CDC. But CDC, I believe, was the one saying that only 1 in 10 actual Tourette's diagnoses have the tick of shouting obscenities. So it's like 10% of the cases. So it's there, but it's not a huge one. And this version of it is called coprolalia. Coprolalia. So it has its own name. It's only 10% of the cases. And I also found that to have Tourette's syndrome, to be diagnosed with it, you actually have to have 2 different motor tics and at least 1 vocal tic for over a year. So there are specifications, and just shouting obscenities could be one of the tics, but it's not enough to get you diagnosed with Tourette's on its own. And technically, that's pretty only 10% of the tics. So yeah, I kind of didn't like that Sheldon was stereotyping Tourette's as only shouting vulgarity. And it's weird too, because technically you can have different tic disorders involving repetitive movements, unwanted sounds that aren't easily controlled. And this gets weird because the controlled thing, I was finding kind of mixed communications on it. And I technically have a tic. Do you know my tic?
No, I don't think I've ever noticed it. Well, I guess now that you're going to tell me, I will never be able to unsee it.
And drinking apparently exacerbates it, makes it happen more. But I've had it since I was a kid, where I like cleared my throat, and I either clear it by kind of coughing or humming, and make like humming sounds. And
I don't think I've ever heard that.
It's weird. Yeah, I think Taylor only noticed it a couple of years ago, and he's like, I've started noticing this, and I'm like, I've done it my whole life, and sometimes it comes back heavily, and sometimes it kind of dissipates. But for me, like if I don't do it, it feels like my throat's like closing up and I can't breathe. And so either I do it subconsciously, or I know I'm doing it and I try to fight it and I feel like I have to do it. Technically, I don't stop breathing because I can't fight it, but it does build up, and it's people say it's kind of like an itch that you need to scratch, or trying to suppress a sneeze, and how that can make it worse. Like if you don't itch something, it's going to itch more and more, and trying not to think about it makes you think about it more. So that's my tic. And it's not, by this definition, wouldn't be considered Tourette's, because I don't have, as far as I know, 2 different motor tics and 1 vocal. I think this is just 1 vocal. So everybody could have something different. It could be blinking, shrugging, blurting stuff out, the offensive words, but there's quite a few different types. And again, there is a specific way to diagnose it. Yeah, sometime you're going to notice it, and then it's going to start pissing you off because you noticed it. And like, I won't even know I'm doing it. And then somebody will point it out, and like, I'll be there like trying not to do it. And it gets weird. It used to piss my sister off so much. She's like, stop humming. I'm like, I can't. Anyways, and like,
I'm going to be on the lookout for that.
Look out for it.
Yeah. I'm going to have to turn up the volume now just so I can try to hear it.
I'm listening, Ryan. It can be triggered by stuff like tight collars, or hearing someone sniff, or seeing somebody do something, and the person with Tourette's or the tics can like subconsciously or consciously realize that it's coming on, and again, they feel compelled to do this. But again, I was seeing kind of a mix of stuff, that some people saying it can't be controlled, although other people are saying that it can be treated with meditation, relaxation, and cognitive behavioral therapy and exposure therapy. So basically, like getting used to dealing with using strategies, and getting used to the tic, and trying to do without them. And so like getting through the anxiety and stress that causes us to have the tics. But other people are saying it can't be controlled. It's like when you have an itch, how often do you just scratch without even realizing you're scratching? Or, the notion of how many times a day do we touch our face without even realizing it, right? That it's definitely subconscious. So controlled or not controlled is up for debate, but some people do try therapy. There are some medications to help with it. And apparently I found out that when you go to sleep, when you're in light sleep, that like subconsciously you still have the tics. So sometimes you will continue them even when you're falling asleep and not awake, not alert. But when you go into deep, deep sleep, they do go away. So it's kind of this weird subconscious but not fully subconscious issue going on. And I think that's all I got for Tourette's, but I really like to stress that it's not just about the profanity. I think we get this from South Park, did an episode where Cartman pretended like he had Tourette's and he was saying curse words. So a lot of people take that as like that must be what Tourette's is, but it's not.
Well, in that episode, he actually went into the therapy. Somebody went into the therapy, and they actually kind of went over the physical tics. Because I remember there was a girl that actually always did like a shoulder roll and snapped her fingers. I don't know why, but that one sticks to my memory.
I kind of remember it now that you mentioned it. I didn't think about that, but no, I do.
Yeah.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. So I feel like South Park does address, like, it definitely exaggerated it. It did make it more about the profanities, but it did a good job, like, explaining the rest of it.
Yeah. It didn't ignore it completely or stereotype it like that. So, yeah, he then writes on the report that she has a tattoo on her right buttock. And
it's a skin condition.
A soup condition. She asked him to stop being him for a minute and maybe be comforting. And he apologizes. And I get 1 point for being like Sheldon here. Because I can so see somebody saying, like, can you comfort me? And he's like, there. And, like, he can't quite touch her. And he's, like, looking like, eh. I'm like, that's how I feel when I'm trying to be compassionate or comforting to people. Like, my brain doesn't comprehend. So I'm like, that. Maybe I don't look like that, but in my mind, that's what I look like.
I'm sure you do look like that.
Oh, I do. Worse. It's all going to be fine. Okay. So back to the campground. The guys have their shirts on their head and they are planning an expedition. They are complaining about being too hungry, so they're planning on robbing a Boy Scout camp, trying to get some s'mores and hot dogs because apparently it's going to be basically like a 7-Eleven. And they go to grab their flashlights and Howard finds an I love you brisket in his backpack. I said, I love you brisket. And they dive in and he goes, there's no need for forks because it falls apart in your hands. As Raji's like, it does fall apart. And they all just start diving in like savages. And then
what a mom. She's such a great mom.
Leonard's like, I think we're forgetting something as the meteors start falling from above. And Howard says, maybe a Tupperware of roasted potatoes and carrots? And they all dive into that too. So his mom saved their lives from starvation. Back at Penny's, Sheldon says that Penny has been given meds, so she shouldn't be operating machinery, and that she should try not to choke on her own drool. And this is where she says, you're going to have to help me get to bed. And she bursts out laughing because she's never seen herself saying that before, that he's going to help get her into bed, right? And then Penny mentions as they're going to bed that people think Sheldon is a weird robot man who's annoying, and he is, but he's kind of like Wally, who can save a plant and help get fat people out of floating chairs. And so he's like, it's a labored metaphor, but he appreciates it. And she tells him that he needs to sing her soft kitty. He says she's not sick. Well, being injured and drugged is kind of like being sick. And she puts on the pouty face. And
this is that callback that I mentioned long ago that would come full circle. I don't know if you mentioned that Sheldon did something like this to her.
Yes.
During the Vegas renormalization, where homesick is a kind of sick.
Homesick is kind of sick.
So he forced her to sing to him. So now, what comes around goes around, Sheldon.
Injured and drugged is kind of sick. So she stops him in the middle of the song and says, we should sing this as a round. And I get 1 point for Penny here because I can see me saying stuff like this. I'm going to write this down and then explain it. 1 point. saying things that are so completely like left field that they break people. And she's not being mean, but by saying we should do this as a round, and he just, the look on his face is like cannot compute. And I've said this to Kelsey, I've said it, or I've done this with Kelsey, I've done it to Taylor, where it's just like they kind of shake their head like, I'm speechless. I don't know what to say. I can't think of
I am out of
examples.
words.
I'm out of words, exactly. So, yeah, I could see me making Sheldon look like that. 1 point for Penny. That's a good point. And so she starts, then stops, and says, that's when you come in. Starts over, stops, starts over, and she's like, I have all night. And so he begins singing with her, and they do it in her house. I love that scene. And she's so happy with it, too.
Yeah.
Back at the campground, coming into the ending, Raj is telling a scary story with his flashlight over his face. And he says, so he rolled over and realized she was his cousin. And
Dun,
Leonard,
dun,
dun, dun, dun. Leonard and Raj have a good laugh. Howard says it's not funny. Raj mimics his accent there, saying, it's not funny. And Howard calls him a douche. And Raj says, who cares? You slept with your cousin. And then we get the end.
Yeah.
Oh,
one of the best episodes.
That was a fantastic episode.
Oh my god.
I can't look at pickled herring without feeling shame and arousal.
Well, that was it.
I am at 79 not Sheldon, 82 like Sheldon.
We got 8 IQ points.
Nice.
And we have that vanity card.
Oh, yeah. I forgot to write it down. I did pick it up. Is it number 44?
276.
276.
It's a long one, so have fun with that one, fucker.
Because I'm looking at chucklorre.com and there's something weird with the dates. When I go to this episode, it brings up one that aired November 9th, and it says number 43.
Because I screenshotted it at the end of the episode.
Because this is season 3, episode 8, right?
8, yeah.
You know what? That's what it is. I was on the wrong episode, or wrong series. Weird.
What?
I don't know.
Were you on 2.5 Men?
Dharma and Greg. I don't know what got me there. Okay, 267. Oh shit, this is long. Put on my reading glasses. Chuck Lorre Productions, 267. Last weekend I went on a movie date with a very nice lady. During the coming attractions, I managed to get a piece of popcorn down the wrong pipe. I started coughing. People nearby glanced at me nervously. Then, as the movie was about to begin, I got a tickle in my nose and sneezed twice. The young couple I almost said shitting, sitting to my left immediately got up and moved across the aisle. The old lady directly in front of me leapt to her feet and literally vaulted over her husband in order to sit further away from me. For some reason, I was a little afraid, but then I realized the newfound power I had. I got up, crossed closer to the old lady and young couple, and coughed again. They all glared at me and once again moved their seats. The game was on, maneuvering like a knight on a chessboard. I countered their move by moving 2 rows down and 1 seat over. I looked at them, I smiled, I coughed. They were stunned. How could this be happening? How had this simple movie outing turned into an Edgar Allan Poe short story? But it had. In a matter of minutes, they had become Prince Prospero and his noble cohorts, while I had become the Red Death. The old woman covered her mouth and the nose with her hand and cried out, "Why are you doing this to us?" I laughed and said, "Why? You want me to know why? You want to know why? Because death, my dear woman, it is inevitable and for us all. And there is no hiding from it. Even at AMC, a horrible silence hung in the theater. No one moved, no one breathed. Then the movie started, and we all settled down and enjoyed the wacky 3D antics of Jim Carrey. Oh, and I'm hoping to go out with the nice lady again, but she has not returned my calls. She has not returned my calls.
I wouldn't either.
No.
I wonder if that's true. Like, it's kind of a dick thing.
I like the like I could see getting up and moving just to piss people off, but actually talking or responding or moving twice might be a bit much. But
I know it's a little over the top that he kept is this game of chess. Oh man. I love going to the theater, but I hate it at the same time. I still remember I sat like it was a crowded theater. I forgot what movie it was, but the guy next to me was a nose breather. So he was like the entire time it was like I was like, "Oh my god." Like you're like ruining the movie.
I went to see Barbie in theaters last summer, and the people next to us took their shoes off and started like pulling their feet up to their seat and like bending their legs, and so their socks were like right by our popcorn. I'm just like, that's
gross.
So I was not happy with that. And then there were some ladies behind us who kept shouting, "You go, girl!" And I'm like, that's kind of ruining the movie for me too.
Oh my god.
So, yeah.
I know. It's like box gyms. I love it because it has everything I need, but I hate everything about it at the same time.
I love it, but I hate it.
Yeah, so that's why I will probably not go to a movie theater for a long, long time until Hunter is of age.
I remember
to actually like
when I was in high school, I went to see 13 Ghosts in the theater, and there were people.
You hear that they're doing a remake of that, right?
I did hear a little bit about that.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was the best movie, but it was enjoyable.
Yeah.
Also, I freaking love Matthew Lillard, and every movie he's in, I have to love, even if I don't like it. It's just I love him as a character.
Wasn't it Shannon Elizabeth too from American Pie?
Yeah.
Was that her name? Oh,
I
yeah.
think so. Yeah. And
Tony Shalhoub was in that too.
Is that the guy who played Monk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was the main guy. Yeah.
Although I always think of him as Antonio from Wings.
Yep. Yeah.
But I went to see that, and I remember there were people bursting out laughing really loudly and obnoxiously behind me, and like everything that wasn't funny, like a jump scare, like, oh, ha, 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 I can't believe that happened, like talking really loudly. And there was a scene where one of the kids like riding a scooter, and he like hits something and falls over and knocks out or something. And I go, ha ha, he fell down and got hurt. And my friend looks at me and was like, what the fuck, Ryan? I'm like, I don't know, I'm pissed off.
Yeah. Just
the people
you're lashing out. That was your game of chess.
That was my game. Because
it turns into an inappropriate laugh off.
All right, so that's it for the episode and the vanity card.
Yeah, this one went a little long. Hopefully, people are still listening.
We should have focused. Oh God,
we were not focused, and frankly, I don't care. You know what? It's all good.
I'm Feel free to what fast forward. To say about soup.
Yep, I am actually very curious about that. So please put down in your comments. Please put down in the comments. Shoot us a message. What's your favorite soup? Do you think ramen and pho are soups? And thanks for listening. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Theoretical Nonsense Pod. Email us at theoreticalnonsensepod@gmail.com, and we will see you next time for Season 3, Episode 9, The Vengeance Formulation. This was Theoretical Nonsense, the Big Bang Theory watch-along podcast. No PhD required. Oh, man. We went really long on this one.
Yeah, I just looked. I'm like, holy shit.
Our intro and outro music is by Alex Grohl. Thanks for listening. Soup's up, motherfuckers.